Alright, so when you first open up Mastercam, this is the environment you're going to see. The area where you do your drawing, it may start up as blue, and I'm going to show you how to change colors. We're going to change that to white because it'll just show up a little bit better. Then over here on the left side you have the Operations Manager, and then you have several tabs inside of that, the toolpaths and the solids tabs. And we're going to leave it at toolpaths for now. Then you see all these icons, and I don't even know what all of them mean, but the majority that you'll be using is, for instance, line, circle, rectangle, and then the rectangle has a menu that you can see with this little pull down menu. Okay, but if you don't know what these icons are, we're going to go ahead and select our features from the menus up above, and you can see what each icon means. Okay, so when I do an X-form translate, you can now see what that icon looks like next to it, and so when you use it over and over, you can start recognizing that quicker up here, and it's just a quick pick, if you will. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and change the color of the background. So for that, we go to Settings, we select Configuration, then over here on the left we select Colors. Then right here it says Graphics Background Color. Okay, so right now that is set to blue, and if you want to change it to white, then you click OK, and then it's going to ask you, do you want to save the current configuration file? Say yes, and notice how it just changed to white. Okay, so now if you want to do a blend of shades, then go to this menu here, and let's say you want to do a horizontal blend of colors or a gradient backgrounds, then you go to this menu here. You have an end color and a start color. Okay, so a gradient background end color would be lighter, so that's fairly light, and then the start color would be dark. So if I select that horizontal and I click OK, now notice how it goes from dark to light. So if you like that, you can kind of play around with some different colors, just whatever's easy on the eyes. Alright, so let's go back to Settings, Colors, Background Color White, and we're going to select None, so we have no gradient background end and start color. It's just one color. Okay, so we're back to white. Alright, so let's just go over some simple basic things that you're going to need to know to be able to draw. First of all, in the lower left hand corner here, you see everything set to top. The G view, the WCS, and the C plane. Okay, everything is set to top. Now, when you hold your center mouse button down and you roll your mouse button, you can kind of see that you're skewing the view. Okay, you're rolling the view around. Now, when you right click on your mouse, you go right back to top. Now, there is several different views. This is a front view. This is a right view. Now, it doesn't show you anything, but it's actually looking at the top, front, or right side of a part. Now, it would help to have a part on the screen to be able to see the effects of that, but know that when you first start out, you're going to always start out in top. Alright, so while we're set to top, let's go ahead and draw something on the screen. I'm going to select Create a Rectangle. Okay, now that opens up this menu, and you can see this would be the length in the x-axis, and this would be the length in the y-axis. Okay, so I'm going to select Anchor to Center. So when I do that, I let my cursor snap to that crosshair, I click it, and then I drag away. I kind of drag away and then click again, and I finalize that shape. Now notice it gave me some numbers where I dropped that corner. Okay, now I'm going to adjust those numbers, so I'm going to make it 4 inches long and 2 inches wide. Okay, then I click OK. Now it got a little bit bigger, so it's actually off the screen. So if you roll your center mouse button, you make it appear again. Or let's say that it is off the screen, you can right click and click fit, and it will show every piece of geometry that is currently on the screen, and it kind of fills out the whole screen. Okay, you can always just roll your center mouse button to zoom out or zoom in. Okay, you can also right click and unzoom by 0.8. So you keep doing that and it just keeps getting smaller. Then you can right click and click fit, and it'll become as large without going off the screen. Alright, so let's zoom out, and I want you to hold your center mouse button down and roll your mouse around. So you kind of get a three-dimensional view there. Now notice that that rectangle is laying right at Z0 plane, and that's because if you look down below here and right next to planes, it's set to 0, okay? And then we also have this 2D that you can toggle back and forth. If you click on it, it's either 2D or 3D, okay? You can toggle it back and forth. Now, let's enter 1 inch in this box, okay? I'm going to right click, I'm going to back to top view, and again I'm going to create a rectangle. I'm going to let it anchor to center, so wherever I start it's going to create a rectangle at an even distance away from the center point. So I'm just going to randomly drop it right there and click OK. Now it appears that they are on the same level just looking at it from the top view. But if you hold your center mouse button down and you roll it, you can see that that new rectangle is sitting 1 inch above. Now, how can you be sure that it is 1 inch? We right click, we select front view, okay, and then from the front view, I'm just going to skew it a little bit so you can see those rectangles. I'm going to hover over this icon over here with the little light bulb that says Smart Dimension. I'm going to click on the arrow right next to it, hover over Dimension, and then select Vertical Dimension. So notice I'm in front view. I'm looking at the front, so I can see the distance between the rectangles a little bit easier. So it says here, create a dimension, linear, specify the first endpoint. So I'm going to let it snap to this corner. Notice how it snapped there? I'm going to click, and then it says create dimension linear, specify the second. So I'm going to click that endpoint, and right there is our 1 inch dimension, or a 1 inch distance. Okay? Alright, so to get rid of that dimension, we just click the undo button, and it will undo whatever you did last. And I think you can hit that up to 100 times and undo anything you created. Okay? Alright, so that is drawing in 2D and controlling the plane that you are drawing on. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about 3D. Now, if I want to draw a line, now I'm going to start using the shortcuts or the icons. So notice I hover over this icon that says create a line segment. Okay, and let's say I want to connect this corner to that corner. Now notice it still wants to put it on that 1 inch plane because we are set to 2D. So the only way it will draw is on a flat plane. Okay, so again, if I undo that and then switch to 3D, now when I select line and I let it snap to this corner and to that corner on the rectangle below, it will now let me connect because now I'm set to 3D. So now it will draw wherever my mouse clicks or snaps to existing geometry. Alright? And then we click OK. So that's very important that you have that set to 2D when you start drawing and that you are aware what value is in this box next to Z. Alright, so now instead of undoing everything, we can also use the erase function. So you can see this little eraser at the top, and when I click on it, it says select entities. So I'm going to select all the entities of those legs in that rectangle hovering an inch above the part. So once I got them all highlighted, I hit the end selection and it's all deleted. Okay, so I select the top, and now let's talk about the X-form functions, and we're going to start with translate. So I click on translate and it says translate select entities to translate. So I'm going to select all 4 legs and then click the end selection green button. Okay, that opens up this menu. I'm going to roll it just a little bit with my center mouse button, and we have 3 options. We can either move it, copy it, or join it. Okay, so if I select move, and let's say in the Z value I want to move it 1 inch, notice it just moved it up because I'm set to top, so Z would be up and down. Yeah, so I moved it 1 inch. But if I select copy, then it keeps the original one and it copies one above. Now if I click join, not only does it copy, it also connects the legs at the corners. Okay, so it actually makes a little box out of it. Now notice I have this arrow here, so I can actually swap the direction. So instead of translating to the plus side, it actually reverses to the minus side. Okay, so let's click OK, and what I want you to notice is that the color scheme right now, we have a red and a purple. So the red would be the color of the original entity, and the purple is the resulting color of the translated geometry. Okay, so then you can always see what you selected as the original and what your copied geometry or translated geometry would be. Okay, so that is one thing you need to notice and remember, because sometimes it is important that you recognize which features you just translated. You know, we're only looking at the box right now, but a lot of times you're looking at a lot of different geometry and you want to be able to distinguish original from copied. Alright, in this next session I'm going to show you how to create geometry on each face of this box using the different views available to you. Let's see how that's done. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is make sure that all of our views are set to top here in the lower left hand corner of the screen. If that's not the case, click on G View, click top, and click on Planes and select top. Okay, then toggle the 2D, 3D button and make sure that is set to 2D and that the Z is set to 0. Alright, first thing we're going to do is create a rectangle. So we go to Create, Rectangle, and we're going to let our cursor snap to the intersection of our crosshair. Click, and then click again right here, and you can see the dimensions of our rectangle. We're going to make it 6 inches in X and 4 inches in Y. I'm going to click OK, right click, fit, right click, unzoom. Alright, so everything is centered up and we should have a 4x6 rectangle. Now if I rotate my screen, you can see that the rectangle is laying right on the 0 plane of the x, y, 0 coordinate. Okay? Now what we're going to do next is we're going to select that whole chain of the rectangle, and you go to this little pull down menu, click on chain, and then click on one of the legs, and it highlights that whole rectangle. Okay? Then we click on this icon that says X-form translate. You can either pick this icon or you can go up to this menu where it says X-form translate. Now we have 3 different options. We can move, copy, or join. We're going to select join, and then in Z we're going to enter 3 inches, and we're going to hit enter. Now notice that we just created a box. The join actually creates these lines and makes it into a box. If we did copy, notice that those legs are not there. If we do move, then all we do is move our rectangle. So back to join gives us a rectangular box. And I'm going to click OK. Now notice again, the red color, that's the original, and then the purple. The purple is always the resulting color of something that you have either translated, copied, moved, rotated, or mirrored. Alright, so we go up here to clear colors, and we get it back to black. Now we've rotated our drawing using the center mouse button, and as you hold the center mouse button down and you move your mouse back and forth, you can see we're rotating our view. Even though we still set the top right here at the bottom, I'm still able to look at this in a isometric view. So if we click on G view and go to top, now I'm looking at the top of the box. G view front, I'm looking at the front of the box. So it's really hard to see. We're looking at it somewhat two-dimensionally. Then we look at the back, and we look at the right. And there are no other features to recognize or even know that we're looking at the right, top, front, or anything. So that's what we're going to work on. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is go back to G view and make sure we get everything back to top, planes, top. Alright, then I'm going to hold the center mouse button down and we're going to roll it to where we have somewhat of an isometric view. Now we're going to draw right on these surfaces. The top surface, the right, the front, the back, the left, and the bottom. Alright, so the way we're going to do that is we're going to go up to Create and select Letters. Now, under the pull-down menu, I'm going to pick Hartford, and we're going to do a height of 0.750. Then we're going to type in top, and we're going to click OK. Now enter the starting location of the letters, is what this little box says right here. So if I was to point at the top of this box right here and left click, it appears that it is at the level of the top surface of the box. But if I roll it, you can see it is at the level of the bottom of the box, and that is because the Z value right here in the bottom of the screen is set to 0. So if you left click on Z and you snap to that top portion right here of the box, notice how it puts in 3 inches. So now if I locate my cursor right here in the middle of the top of the box and click it again, now you can see top is located right on top of that box. And so everything that you draw at this point is going to be drawn on this 3-inch plane up from this bottom of the box. Make sense? Alright, so I'm going to hit escape and get out of that, and I'm going to delete this top. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to write the word front on the front of this box right here. So the only thing we're going to do is click on planes at the bottom of the screen, select front. Now it's not going to change your view, it's just going to select front as your construction plane. Okay, so then we go back to letters and we're going to type in front. Click OK, and we click on the front side of this box, and notice front is located right on the face of the front of the box. Okay, alright, so let's do the next one. We'll go back to planes. We're going to select right. Then the first thing we're going to do is left click on Z, snap to the face or the side of the right side, and now you can see we entered 6 inches in this box. Alright, then we'll go back to Create, Letters. We're going to type right, click OK, click right on the side of the box, and right is located on the right side of that box. Alright, let's continue. We're going to click on planes. We're going to do back. So this will be the back side. Alright, we're going to hit escape to get out of letter mode. So we're going to left click on Z. We're going to let it snap to the corner of the back side, and watch how it put in 4 inches. Alright, so we'll go back to Create, Letters. We're going to type in back, Click OK. And you can see back is on the back side of the box. Okay, let's do the next one. Let's click Escape to get out of the letter mode. We're going to click Planes. We're going to click left. I'm going to rotate the box around to the left side facing us. Then we're going to left click on Z. Let it snap to that corner. We are at 0. Create letters left. Okay. And left is on the left, so there's one left to go. The bottom. So let's escape. To get out of letter mode, we'll go to Planes, bottom. I'm going to left click on Z. I'm going to let our cursor snap to the bottom corner of that box. So that's set at 0. We'll go back to Create Letters, bottom, enter. I'm going to let it right on the bottom of the box. Alright, so now let's hit Escape. And now we're going to go ahead and go to G View. We'll go to Top, and we can see Top. Okay? Then we'll go to Front, and we can read Front on the front of the box. Then we go to Right. We can see Right. Then we'll go to Back, and we can read the word Back. We'll go to Left. We see the word Left. And we'll go to Bottom. We got the word Bottom. Alright, so that was a quick introduction to how to work with construction planes and control the Z height of your drawing plane. Alright, so next we're going to talk about an X-form function that is called rotate. And we're going to rotate a circle and create a bolt circle. So the way we're going to start with that is create a circle, and we're going to select that from the Create menu. We'll go to Arc, and we select Circle Center Point. Now notice that little icon right here. I'm going to select that. Now that same icon is right there. Okay, so that once you learn how to recognize that, that's where you will pick it. Okay. So first of all, on the screen it says enter the center point. So I'm just going to let my cursor snap to the center. I'm going to drag away from the center, okay, with my mouse, and then just click. Once I click, I can adjust the diameter. Now, notice there's two boxes here. The one on the left is the radius value, and the one on the right is the diameter value. So I'm going to enter 1 inch. So it automatically adjusts. I'm going to zoom in on that and click OK. So now I have a 1 inch circle. If you want to make sure that it is, then click on our light bulb, Smart Dimension, highlight it, click on it, and then you zoom in and you can see that's a 1 inch circle. Okay? Then click OK, undo to get rid of that dimension, and let's center up in the screen. So now we're going to go to X-form. First of all, we're going to translate, which means we're going to move it. Okay? So the little box shows up and it says select entities to translate. So I'm going to select that and then click this green button here that says end selection. Then we're going to move it in the Y direction 4 inches off center. Okay? So we click OK. Now we'll go back to X-form and we're going to rotate. So I'm going to activate rotate. So it says select entities to rotate. So I'm going to select that circle. Click the end selection. And we're going to copy that circle in increments of 45 degrees. Okay, so now I have one copy. And it rotates about this center point. Okay. Now, I can manually enter how many copies I want, or I can hit the arrows and it's going to give me copies of that circle every 45 degrees. So that is my max 7 copies for a total of 8 circles in this bolt hole circle. So I just click OK and I'm done. Now if I want to make sure that that is an 8-inch bolt hole circle, I'm going to select Create Circle Center Point right there from the quick pick icon. I'm going to let my cursor snap to that center, and then I'm going to drag it until it snaps to the center point of one of those circles. Okay, so there is that bolt hole circle, and now I'm going to measure that, highlight it, and you can see that says 8 inches in diameter. Okay, now that shows up real small. The way to fix that, I'm going to show you that real quick. You go under Settings, Configuration, and right here on the left it says Dimension Text. Now that text height is set to 60,000. So let's change that to 0.250. We click OK. Now I'm going to get rid of this dimension and get that dimension again. So now you can see that is showing up a whole lot bigger. I don't have to zoom in to see it. Okay, so at that point, whenever you create something, always make sure you hit the save button. Sometimes Mastercam crashes, and this is just a lot of work that you've done, so make sure you hit that save button often. Alright, so that was translate and rotate. Alright, in this session I'm going to talk about X-form mirror and X-form offset. These are functions that you will probably use often if you're drawing geometry for a lathe part. So you can either find them on the X-form menu up above, or you can select them from the quick pick icons right here, X-form mirror, or pull down this little arrow and select X-form offset. Okay, now we're going to start by drawing a rectangle. So we're going to create a rectangle. Now this is the selection I showed you in previous sessions. We can also select rectangular shapes, and that's what I want to use this time. It opens up this box and it allows you to give it a length and a width, and then select the type of rectangle you want, and then in this anchor box you can tell it what corner or edge or center point you want to use to anchor that shape to your drawing. Okay, so let's try that. So we're going to enter 6 inches for the length, and let's do 1 inch for the height. Okay, so we're just going to select a regular rectangular shape, and we're going to let it anchor to the right lower corner, and when I drag my cursor and let it snap to the origin, that's where it places the rectangle. So that's a quick way of creating a rectangle. Had I put a radius value here, it would have put radii on those corners. Okay, so that's an option there also. Alright, so let's click OK. Now let's say that I want to create different diameters, and so I'm going to use the offset feature to create different diameters. Okay, so right now this is 1 inch, and I'm going to offset this to the bottom side and then enter 0.5. So now I have offset that top line by a ½ inch to the minus side, and then click the blue apply button. The blue means apply what I just did, but let me stay in this offset menu to do another offset. So let's just repeat that one more time. We're going to offset, and then again the direction. So again I select below that line, and now I'm going to enter 0.250 and click that blue button again. Okay, roll your center mouse button. Sometimes that line that I initially created goes away, but when you refresh or when you roll your mouse button, it kind of refreshes the drawing and everything shows back up. Alright, so now I'm going to offset the right line to the left, and we'll go ahead and do that by 0.750. Okay, then hit the blue. That means offset is finalized. Now I want to do a new offset using that offset line, and I'm going to offset that by 1 inch to 50. Okay, then click OK or apply. Then select that line again and offset it 2 inches. Okay, now we click OK and we get out of that menu. Alright, so hit save. Again, hit save often so that you don't lose some work that you have done. Now we're going to have to trim to get a little bit of a shape. So we're going to click on the trim function, and that opens up this menu, and we're going to select divide and delete. Now make sure that highlights, and then you know that it is active. Now each line that you select, it's going to delete up to the next entity. Okay, so done that, done that, done that. Then I'm going to delete that and that. Delete that and that. And click OK. And now I'm going to draw a line and let it snap from there to there. Okay, so now I have 2 different diameters, then a ramp up to the large diameter. Now we'll go back into trim and let's get rid of all these other lines that we really don't need. So all we are left with is the shape that we want to turn, which is this diameter with this shoulder, that diameter with that taper up to the large diameter. So we click OK. So now we basically have the shape that we want to turn, and now we go and mirror this whole shape. So I create a window, and then it highlights the part. I click End Selection, and we want to copy that, and we want to use the X-axis to mirror that shape, and then click OK. So now you can see I only had to draw that shape once on the upper left quadrant, and now I can copy that shape, and then I just mirror that shape about the X-axis, and now it looks like a part that I can turn on the lathe. So that is just a very basic simple shape, how to use offset, how to use the trim functions, and then how to use a mirror function. Now again, notice the red color on the top half and the purple on the bottom. So that means that the red was the original and the purple is the resulting color after doing a mirror operation. Now there's one point I want to make real quick. It was not necessary to actually mirror that shape that I created in the upper left hand quadrant to actually create a lathe operation. That was the only geometry I would have needed to draw in order to create a lathe operation. Okay, so the mirror function that I did is strictly for visual purposes and showing you how the mirror option works. Just wanted to clarify that real quick. Let's do one more example of X-form mirror. Let's draw a rectangle. So we're gonna select the origin, drag our mouse away and click. Then we enter the length and the height and click enter, and then click OK. Then I'm going to put a radius on each corner, but each corner is going to have a different size radius. So the way you do that is you can go to Create, Fillet, Entities, or you can select it from the Quick Pick, Fillet Entities. Both get you into this menu right here. So you highlight right here in this box, and you're going to enter the radius that you want to create. So we're going to create a 0.625 radius, and we're going to select the corner that we want to radius. So we're going to select one entity, two entities. Okay, so that's a 625 radius. Then we click apply, and so therefore we finalize that radius, but now we can change the value and go to a different corner. Okay, so that's a 750, apply. Then we want a 1 inch, and we're going to put that on that corner, apply, and then 1.5 inches. and we're going to put that on this lower left hand corner. Then we click OK. So then let's move it out of that corner. So we're going to create a window so it highlights it all. We're going to do an X form, translate, and we're going to move it in the X direction by 1 inch and in Y 1 inch. No particular reason, I just want it away from that origin. Okay? Now we're going to mirror this about the Y-axis. So I'm going to highlight that part. Okay, then select X form, mirror, and I want to mirror it about the Y-axis. So I'm going to put a check in that box and notice the result right there. So again, I want to apply. I want to stay inside that menu. So it says select the entities to mirror. And this gives you an option to do some more mirroring if you want. So I'm going to highlight both, click OK, and now I want to mirror about the X-axis. So I select the X-axis, and you can see again, the original is red, the resulting color is purple. Alright, so now that is mirroring about X-axis and Y-axis that I've shown you. Now I'm going to click undo and undo, because you don't have to necessarily use the X and Y axis. You can actually use a line. So let's draw a line, and it doesn't have to be a vertical or horizontal. It can be a random line at an angle. Okay, so I'm going to create a random angle line. So now I'm going to select mirror. It says select entity, so I'm going to again select the part. And now I'm going to select a line. So it says select line about which to mirror. So I'm going to pick that line and then click OK. So now it has mirrored that shape. Now notice how it really placed it kind of skewed. Okay, so but that may be necessary for whatever it is you are designing. Okay, I just wanted to point out that you don't have to use just the X-axis and Y-axis. It can be a line, and it can also be a couple of points. So if I create a couple of points, so create a point, position, and let's say I put a point here and a point here. I click OK. I go back in the X form mirror function. I select that part. I click OK. And look where it says here, select 2 points, select first point, and then select second point. So now it mirrored it about those 2 points. So this is very random, of course, but you may be mirroring something again in your design where all you have to work with is a couple of points, a line, or whatever feature. Okay, so that is just a little bit more about how to mirror and just the different functions inside of that. Next, I'm going to talk about X form, move to origin, and rotate. And for this example, we're going to create a rectangle again, and this time I'm going to create a rectangle away from the origin, just in a random location. And we're going to make this 6 inches wide and then 18 inches tall. Okay, so let's say that part needs to be machined, and we want to anchor that part to the origin always, because your origin is always going to be some feature on the part. So the first thing you want to do is bring that part to the origin. So we select X form, move to origin, and then it says select the point to translate from. So I want to anchor this lower left hand corner to the origin, so that's what I select, and notice how it brought it all the way back to origin. So I can click right click fit and zoom out just a little bit. Now I want to rotate this 90 degrees clockwise. So I go back to X form, we're going to rotate. Now it's going to rotate about the X0, Y0, the origin. Okay, so it says select entities to rotate, so I'm going to select the window and click, and then end selection. We're going to move it, and I want to move it 90 degrees, and when I hit enter it gives me a preview, and I want to actually rotate it the opposite direction, so I can click this arrow and rotate it exactly where I want it, and then click OK. So now I have my part anchored to X0, Y0, which is the far left corner, and in the orientation that I want to hold it in my vise. So therefore I rotated it 90 degrees. Now if I click undo and undo, if I do a rotation first, let's say I want to rotate that part 90 degrees first, so I do X form rotate, select the part, and then do 90. Now notice it is rotating about the X0, Y0 origin. Okay, so I want to go the opposite direction. So now it ends up way over here, which is still the orientation that I want the part to be in, and it's okay, but it is rotating about this point. Now, there is a feature here where I can define the center point of rotation. Okay, so if I click undo and put it back where it was, I could rotate about one of these corners. So let's do that. X form, rotate. I want to select the part, click OK. Then first I define the center point of rotation, which is going to be that point. Then enter the angle, and I want to go the opposite direction. Now I could have put minus 90, knowing now after doing this 3 times. But let's assume this is the first time, and all you want to do is reverse that rotation. Okay, then you click OK, and now I go into X form, move to origin, and I want to pick this corner because that's the X0, Y0 of my program. It's the far left corner, and so that's what I select. And so now when I create a toolpath around this part, my X0, Y0 is anchored to the upper left hand corner. Alright, I hope that makes sense. Alright, so next I want to talk a little bit about the level manager. Now this is the level manager menu, and I'm going to go ahead and close it and show you where I got that. So down below here where it says level, you left click on it and it brings up this window. Okay, so now every exercise that we did in this video, I have basically saved the geometry on different levels. Okay, so I did not just erase it and lose everything that I drew. I just moved it to a different level, and each time I started new, I made level 1 active and started with a fresh screen, if you will. Okay, so the way that works is when I draw something on this screen, so let me move this down just a little bit. You can leave it open while you're drawing something. So let's of course create another rectangle, and I'm just going to draw one randomly right here just for visual purposes. So let's say I used this the rectangle for an explanation. Now I want to move it to its own level. Okay, so the way you do that is you right click on level. Then it says select the entities to change the level of. So obviously I'm going to draw a window, highlight it, click this end selection button, and then this little menu comes up. You have 2 options. You can either move it or you can copy it. Okay, so we're going to move it to its own level, and right now I have 100, 200 through 500. So I'm going to select, create a new level, and we're going to call this level manager. And click OK. Then you get one last chance to either move or copy. We're going to move it and then click OK. So now I have moved this rectangle to level 600. So notice there is a visible column here and there's an X. So if I get rid of the X, I just click on that X and it goes away. So I can make it appear or go away. And I can do that with each level. Just put an X in it. Now, if I click in the visible column, it just makes that geometry visible. If I click in the number column, it actually makes it visible, but also active. So any feature that I create on that level is going to stay on that level. So let's say I draw a circle right here randomly. Now that ends up on level 300. So when I make 200 active, it's not there. It's not on 1. It's on the one that was colored. Okay, so always be aware, if you're managing levels, that you are aware which level is actually highlighted, because that is where the entities you're drawing or any changes you're making to features are going to stay or are going to be saved. So let's say that you made an error and that you created some features on a level and you didn't mean to. So what you do then, again, you right click on level, you select the features that you want to separate out, click OK. I'm going to move that, and you can either change the level right here, but what I like to do is when I hit select, then enter that number and I can give it a name. So we just call this circle, click OK, we move it, and then we finalize it. Now it still shows on the same level, but I can turn it off. And now I'm back to where our lathe part is located. Alright, so then we also have two buttons here at the bottom. You have all on, that makes all levels visible, and then all off, and the only visible level will be the one that is highlighted. So if I highlight the main level where I have 0 entities and then click all off, then I'm starting again with a blank screen. So that's how you separate out geometry so that it's not so cluttered. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.